Welcome, Pilgrim, to the Pilgrim's Rest channel.
It's good to be here.
Our mission here is simple, but really vital. We introduce spiritual classics passed down through the ages, delivering insights to provide rest and supply for you on your journey, empowering you anew.
And today's topic is definitely one of those classics, a big one.
Absolutely. Today, we aren't just opening a book. We are, well, wading into a torrential theological debate, one that remains critically important for any person serious about their spiritual path.
We are undertaking a deep dive into Martin Luther's definitive theological text, The Bondage of the Will.
The Bondage of the Will, wow.
Yeah. This book, originally published in Latin, isn't just some historical artifact. It's considered one of the most powerful, significant declarations ever written on the nature of humanity, divine sovereignty.
And salvation itself.
And salvation, exactly. Its impact is huge.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. We're talking about Martin Luther. I mean, if you are pursuing a spiritual life rooted in foundational truth, he's just unavoidable, isn't he?
Completely unavoidable. A pivotal figure.
But to really understand the bondage of the will, you have to get the context. This wasn't just Luther sitting down to write a treatise out of the blue.
No, not at all. It was a fiery response.
To who?
It was his reply to Desiderius Erasmus of Rotterdam, a giant intellectual figure of the time.
Right, Erasmus, the humanist scholar.
Exactly. Erasmus had published his own work, Diatribe Concerning Free Will. And in it, well, Erasmus tried to strike a balance.
A sort of middle ground.
Kind of. He argued that humans still had some faculty of choice left in spiritual matters. You know, a position we often call synergism, God and human cooperating.
Okay, synergism. Got it.
But Luther saw this as fundamentally undermining the entire gospel message. He just couldn't accept it.
So this wasn't some minor academic disagreement over, like, footnotes or phrasing.
Oh, no. Far from it.
This is a fundamental battle, wasn't it, over whether salvation is, say, 99% God and maybe 1% human choice.
Or if it's 100% God. That was the core issue for Luther.
And his response, the bondage of the will, it's basically a declaration that the human will is, well, completely incapable.
Absolutely. Totally incapable of choosing God or initiating any spiritual good on its own. That's his central claim.
That's a strong stand.
It is. And what's fascinating here is how Luther grounds this argument. He doesn't just say the will is bound in, everything. He makes a critical distinction.
Oh, that's important. People often miss that, I think.
They do. They hear the title and assume total paralysis. But Luther says the human will is free in outward or civil matters.
Like what? Give us an example.
Sure. You choose what color shirt to wear, where to invest your money, maybe whether to walk down this street or that street, everyday choices.
Okay, that's a crucial point.
Too bad.
Because, I mean, if the will were truly bound in every sense, we couldn't make any meaningful choice at all, which it feels kind of absurd.
Precisely. That's not his argument. Luther is focused solely, laser-focused, on the spiritual will, meaning the ability to incline yourself toward God, to truly seek righteousness, or even to desire grace apart from God first acting upon us.
Ah, okay, so in those matters.
In spiritual matters, he says, the will is utterly enslaved. It's in bondage.
That title is so provocative.
Yeah.
But what exactly is the will bound to? Is it like an external chain forcing it, or is it something internal?
That's the core insight. And this transforms the text from just, dogma into a really deep spiritual foundation. The will is bound internally.
Internally. How so?
It's not forced against its desire. That's key. Rather, the fallen human will, because of sin, naturally wills only what is opposed to God.
So it wants the wrong things.
It's inherently inclined towards sin, yes. Luther argues this is a state of necessity, but importantly, not compulsion.
Okay, hold on. Necessity versus compulsion. That sounds tricky. Let's explore that, because necessity can sound cold, almost mechanical.
It can, yes.
If my will is bound by necessity, meaning I cannot act otherwise in spiritual matters, then how can I be held accountable for my spiritual failings? That's the big ethical question, isn't it? The one every pilgrim reading this bumps up against.
It is the profound tension right at the heart of the book. Luther absolutely maintains accountability.
How does he square that circle?
He argues that the will, even though it's bound by necessity to sin, still acts voluntarily. It freely and willingly chooses the object of its sinful inclination.
So the problem isn't that someone is physically tied up and forced to sin.
No, exactly. The problem is that their inner desire, their inclination, is corrupt. That's the root issue.
So the want to is broken.
The want to is fundamentally misdirected. As Luther puts it, if we are to be saved, God must step in and radically change that inclination, that desire entirely, regeneration.
Wow. Okay. If we connect this to the bigger picture, then,
Yep.
the whole debate really hinges on where the glory goes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's central for Luther.
If any part of salvation relies on human effort, even just the initial tiny choice to turn to God, then, well, we could boast in that little bit, couldn't we? That 1%.
And then the glory is divided, even slightly.
And Luther was having none of that.
None of it. He was absolutely determined, fiercely determined, to ensure that salvation was purely by grace, so that God's glory remains 100% intact, undiluted.
He really saw Erasmus's position, even though it might have seemed more, I don't know, reasonable or gentle.
Well, and learned, yes.
He saw it as fundamentally undermining Christ's finished work on the cross.
He was completely unapologetic about this. He famously stated that he actually loved this doctrine of the bound will.
Loved it. That sounds counterintuitive. Why?
Because for him, it offered the greatest possible certainty and comfort. Think about it. If his salvation depended even slightly on his own efforts, his own willpower,
He'd always be doubting, wondering if he'd done enough.
constantly in doubt, constantly striving, and inevitably failing. But if it's 100% God's work, then it's secure. It rests on God's faithfulness, not his own. Okay. That's the key takeaway, then, for the pilgrim. For the person listening who needs that rest and supply we talked about.
Exactly.
If you're exhausted by striving, by trying to measure up, this doctrine, strangely enough, provides the ultimate comfort.
It really does. It shifts your focus completely
Yeah.
away from the instability of your own willpower
Which we all know fails us.
and onto the absolute unwavering power and sovereignty of God.
That point is what makes this historical text still so relevant, isn't it? It feels very modern, in a way.
It really cuts through a lot of modern noise. Today's culture is just saturated with self-help narratives, right?
Everywhere. You can do it if you just try hard enough.
Exactly. The idea that achieving spiritual success, or any success, is just a matter of optimizing your effort, finding the right technique.
Mm-hmm.
Luther basically argues that in the spiritual life, the only viable optimization is recognizing your utter inadequacy first,
Facing reality.
and then fully submitting to grace, relying completely on what God has done. Can you give us a nugget from the text, maybe a quote, something that really encapsulates this idea for the listener?
Let me think. One powerful section is where Luther discusses the clarity of Scripture on this issue. He basically says, look, the Bible isn't obscure about this.
So, no hidden meanings.
No. He argues that trying to find some middle path where human effort somehow assists God is futile. It actually violates the plain sense of the Bible.
Okay.
And he emphasizes that if God didn't conceal the binding nature of the will, perhaps he revealed it so clearly, precisely, to drive us entirely out of ourselves and onto him, to make us desperate for his intervention.
Wow. To drive us to him, not just reveal a fact.
Exactly. It's meant to produce reliance, not just intellectual agreement.
So what does this mean for, say, daily spiritual discipline then, if the will is bound in this way?
Well, it changes the nature of the effort, doesn't it? The effort shifts maybe from doing things to earn favor to receiving what's already offered.
From striving to resting.
Yes. It moves the pilgrim from a position of constantly trying to impress God with their spiritual stamina, their willpower,
Such exhausting.
to a posture of, well, thankful dependence, resting in the supply that's already been given through Christ.
That links back perfectly to our channel's mission, finding rest and supply.
It does. And, you know, the sheer fact that this book exists, its enduring influence, it shows us something important, too.
What's that?
That deep, sometimes difficult, critical examination of doctrine isn't just for theologians in ivory towers. It's actually essential for real spiritual growth.
It grounds you.
It grounds you. For the modern pilgrim, engaging with a profound, challenging text like the Bondage of the Will, it offers an anchor in essential foundational truths.
And like we said, it guides you away from that exhaustion of self-reliance.
Which is so prevalent.
And helps you find that true sustainable rest and supply, where in grace alone.
In grace alone, that's
Yeah.
the heart of it.
So perhaps we leave the pilgrim with this final thought to mull over. If Luther, Martin Luther himself, was willing to basically face down the most influential, brilliant minds of his age over this specific issue, the bound will, what does that tell us?
It tells us something about its importance, surely.
It's absolute, maybe non-negotiable importance for understanding the true source of our spiritual ability, or inability, perhaps.
Right.
It really demands a rigorous kind of self-examination from each of us, doesn't it? Are you resting in the sufficiency of grace, truly? Or are you, perhaps unconsciously, still trying to exert a spiritual will that, according to Luther, is powerless on its own?
That's the challenge. And texts like this, they are necessary. They help us gain thorough knowledge, maybe more quickly than stumbling around on our own. They equip the learner not just with, surface encouragement.
Feel-good phrases.
Right, but with the deep, immovable foundations needed for the long spiritual journey.
Powerful stuff. Foundational, like you said.
Indeed.
Well, thank you for listening to Pilgrim's Rest Channel.
Yes, thank you.
We welcome you to leave a message about what you have gained after listening. It really helps, allowing us pilgrims to mutually support and encourage one another on the path.
That interaction is valuable.
It truly is. We hope to see you next time.